Ooh, that's a nice piece of furniture. Wow, I really like that. The proportions are, wow, that's just perfect. I love the texture that they did on these doors. Wow, this is a really nice piece. Ooh, here's another one. This one's, well, it'll get the job done. It's utilitarian. It looks, kind of looks like something my Uncle Bob would have made. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name's Roger Kugler. This is Working at Woodworking Podcast, episode number 59, A Craft Artfully Done. So what separates one piece of furniture from another? Or more specific to us, what separates a $1,500 piece of furniture from a $150 piece of furniture? And what's all this stuff about art and craft? I don't quite get that. That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And before you tune out, stay with me. This is art that you're going to want to listen about because it's really important whenever it comes to producing work that people want to buy. Now, if we turn to Mr. Webster or Mr. Oxford for a definition of craft, we get two definitions. The first one, an activity involving skill in making things by hand, such as the craft of bookbinding. The secondary definition is a skill used in deceiving others. That one actually comes into our work more often than you think. I'll circle back around to that. The definition of art is the expression or application of human creative skill and imagination, typically in a visual form, such as a painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. The art of the Renaissance, as an example. The second definition is the various branches of creative activity, such as painting, music, literature, and dance, etc., the visual arts. Okay, so we can see two things right away. The definition of art is going to be the $1,500 definition, and the definition of craft is going to be the $150 definition. Can you make more money from art than you can craft? Well, the definition is certainly longer, so yeah, I'm going to kind of say you can. So let's take two bookcases, for example. Let's take an arts and craft bookcase, stickly green, something like that around the 1900s, and let's compare that to a bookcase from IKEA. Now, the arts and craft bookcase is going to be made out of probably quarter-sawn white oak. It's going to be frame and paneled sides. It will probably have adjustable shelves. The shelves will probably be 7/8 inch thick, or maybe a apron attached to the front and back of a thinner shelf, and it will be able to hold, well, probably most of Black's Law textbooks. It will have a rich brown, deep brown finish, probably through fuming using ammonia. Overall, it will just have this charm, this presence that will totally fill a room. Details on the bookcase will include things like maybe a cloud lift, perhaps some pyramided ebony plugs. Overall, the bookcase is just going to be solid with a nice base to support all that weight, and just a wonderful piece of furniture. A piece that, if you owned, your heirs would fight over after you die. We call that legacy furniture. Furniture that people want to hold on to. Now, let's look at the IKEA piece. Yeah, it's white. It's, well, tall, rectangular. It's made with either MDF or some type of particle board. It probably has a melamine laminate surface, and it comes in a box. Very convenient. It will hold books. I wouldn't suggest law books or chemistry or physics. Maybe paperbacks would be appropriate for that. So these are two pieces of furniture that are designed to do the same thing, but one is just so much different than the other. Is the IKEA piece useful? Absolutely. Does it cost less than the arts and craft? Absolutely. Is there anything wrong with furniture in a box? Not at all. If that is what you need and that is what your budget allows, by all means, IKEA furniture. But just understand that when you're gone, your ancestors are going to fight over who has to carry it out to the dumpster. It is what it is. So when we get a little deeper into what makes one piece look so much better than another piece, we can first start to assess the surface appearance. Now, the appearance of the piece is going to be determined by, and we're talking about wood furniture here, which, I don't know, maybe it was unfair to use the IKEA as an example because it's technically not wood, really. It's not solid wood. But grain is usually the first thing that the eye will pick up on a nice piece of wood furniture. Color, I'm not talking red, blue, green, but the various colors that wood comes in. And texture. How does the piece feel? How does it appear to the eye? Now, of course, shape is real important. We'll talk about that in a moment. So let's go back to grain. If you're using quarter sawn lumber, you basically have straight lines. No variation. Nice, even, straight lines. Typically with the same amount of spacing between the grain. Looks wonderful. If you're using some woods, such as white oak or even red oak, you'll start to pick up medullary lines. These are those little flakes that you see. Other woods, such as maple, don't really have that. You can also see it in cherry sometimes. If you're using rift cut lumber, that would be lumber in which the annual rings are between 60 and 30 degrees to the surface. That's going to give you mostly straight grain, but there's going to be a little more variation. They may not be exactly parallel. Now, if you're using plain or flat sawn wood, that's where we get the cathedrals. That's where we start to see, some really spectacular grain. And if you look at an old piece of furniture, a frame and panel, maybe a cabinet, a bookcase, you will see that typically the frame is made with the quarter or rift sawn wood, and the panel is made with flat sawn wood. And that is not done by accident. Number one, the quarter sawn or rift sawn is going to be probably a little more expensive wood. The flat sawn is going to be less expensive wood, but it's not quite as stable. It's going to have a tendency of wanting to cup or twist or change shape. Now we can overcome that by putting that in a groove of the frame, the nice stable quarter or rift sawn wood, and that will hold everything flat and solid. The added benefit of that is that we create a contrast between the straight lines of the frame and the cathedral grain that we probably see in the flat sawn wood. This is where you, as a small independent woodworking shop, can really shine because you get to choose your grain. And if you're building a cabinet or a credenza or anything like that, look at the direction of the grain. Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it symmetrical? There's a company in the U.S. that specializes in making cabinet doors for kitchens. And a lot of cabinet makers use them. They can go online, they can punch into dimensions, they want style number 527, they want it out of birch and paint ready and go. And in a week, these doors show up, they're nicely packaged, they're already, drilled out for European cup hinges. They even put in the holes for the hardware. I mean, it's quick, it's simple, and it really helps in turnaround of a job. Typically, these are only paint grade cabinets because when you get into clear finished cabinets, the grain starts to get wild. You will have quarter sawn wood in the panel. It is just all over the place. You will have some grain going one way and on one side and going the opposite backwards on the other side. There's no symmetry. There's no rhyme or reason. And I actually called this company up and talked to him about that. He said that they are an assembly line cabinet door company. The tree gets unloaded at this end of the building and it goes through the plant, gets chopped up, gets processed, gets dimensioned. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit. But the wood comes in one side and the cabinet comes out the other side, and typically humans don't touch it. This is all done by machinery. And I asked about grain matching, and he said, no. Grain matching typically takes humans, and we don't do that. You get what you get. And you have seen kitchen cabinets like this, that the grain is just like, oh my gosh, it's just everywhere. And the cabinets, they're inexpensive, and they absolutely look like it. So grain is really, really important. Learn to use grain. Color. We've talked about learning to use color in this podcast before. If you haven't had an art class in like third grade or something, I would really encourage you to sign up for something. Even something online. Watch some videos. You need to understand basic color theory. What is that? There are 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. And you can mix these primary colors to make really any other color except like white. So if you mix blue and yellow together, you get green. They make color wheels. Just look for them on Amazon. They're like 10, maybe $15. And they show you how all the different colors come together. Why is that important to woodworkers? Well, because we use color all the time. You get old Mrs. Smith's rocker in here, and it's kind of a reddish brown. We use brown all the time. Most woods are like brown. It might be a maple, which is a really, 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 really light, creamy brown, or we may use mahogany that is kind of a reddish brown, but they all have brown in there someplace as that base layer. How do you make brown? Well, if you are really good with color theory, you would know that if you mix any 2 complementary colors together, you get brown. What are complementary colors? Those are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. So you've already mixed up some green, add some red to that, the complement of green, and you get brown. And by learning how to mix and match these colors, you can start to really dial in and match the color of a piece of furniture that you're repairing. Now, this applies to opaque or pigment type colors, things that you cannot see through. This doesn't apply to translucent colors such as light, photography. It gets a little different in there. One's an additive, the other's kind of a subtractive process. We're going to concentrate on the opaque pigment-based colors. But I don't know about you, but the last time I bought stain, I didn't go in and look for brown stain. No, we can't make it that easy. We have to use all these fancy wood color names. So you see things like antique walnut, or dark walnut, or special walnut, or light walnut, golden oak, Spanish oak, red mahogany, light mahogany, antique mahogany. So you have all these names, and literally if you don't have a color chart, you really have no idea what they're even talking about. And to kind of add more confusion to wood stain color names, we can get into the traditional names such as raw sienna or burnt umber. How about Coravan? Burnt sienna, anyone? How about raw umber? That's different than burnt umber. So those are the old traditional names for different types of colors. This is back when you really didn't even buy stain. You had these base colors and you just mixed and matched and kind of came up with your own. You can get a woodworker's color wheel. There's a company called Color Concepts, the Finisher's Color Wheel. And it shows all the different colors and how they can be mixed at different ratios. And you can add white, and that changes the hue and the value. And you can add, raw umber or black, and then that changes things. It can get actually pretty complicated. But you kind of just need to know the basics there. And if you do have some interest, I put a link in the show notes on how to make brown. And it's a YouTube video that they go through and they show how you're using those complementary colors and then how you can modify those to get the exact color that you're looking for. So the third element of your surface appearance is going to be texture. Now, generally we think of texture as being flat. In fact, we go to great lengths to make sure that our boards, our tabletops, our bench tops, our shelves are flat. But flat's kind of boring. If you're building this nice little side table, maybe for some fine china or your VHS tape collection, experiment with some texture, particularly doors. Do something different. Get your router out and just try to create a pattern with like a bull-nosed bit. Maybe you could use a V-bit and do some interesting freehand guided straight lines just to create something that normally we don't see. Practice on some scrap wood, and I'm pretty sure you'll come up with something that will please the eye and the touch, because furniture that is touched is furniture that's going to make you more money. Now, along with texture, I'm going to throw in reflectivity. You can use a high gloss finish or you can use a flat finish. And if you think about it, that is an element of texture because you can see something and see how you're going to interact with that. And this is something that just like, color in general, it comes and goes with popularity. It used to be that everything was under a high gloss, plasticky polyurethane. And over the last, decade or so, that has really seemed to have changed into satin and even flat. I can't tell you the last time I bought a can of a high gloss finish. Well, except for boats. So that's another way that you can really influence the appearance of your piece through the use of texture. Okay, let's talk about shape. I think this is where most of us kind of screw things up. Woodworkers tend to be very practical people. There's a problem, I can fix that problem. You need a nightstand that will fit right there, I can build you a nightstand that fits right there. The challenge is building a nightstand that will fit those exact dimensions that look nice. So how can we do this? Well, something that's been used for thousands of years is the use of proportions. The simplest of the proportions are ratios. This piece is 2 feet high, it is 2 feet wide. That's a 1-to-1 ratio. Or maybe it's 2 feet high, but only 1 foot wide. Well, that's a 1-to-2 ratio. How deep should the drawer be in this little nightstand? Well, I bet it would look nice with a 1-to-3 ratio. In other words, the drawer is going to be 1/3 the overall height of the nightstand. That looks a little top heavy. Maybe we could go to a 1-to-4 ratio. And you try that out literally on an old piece of cardboard where you've just kind of sketched this thing out using chalk, and you can start to see what is going to look better. I've mentioned this gentleman before, George Walker. You need to get familiar with his work. He is the master of using ratios and proportioning furniture. He knows this stuff inside and out. I've left a link in the show notes to his webpage. You need to study George Walker. Or you can rely on the time-tested, age-old golden mean. This is a ratio of width to height that has been used since antiquity. We see this all over the Greek culture. You may have seen it today. Is there a 3x5 card taped to your refrigerator right now? That is the golden mean. The golden mean is a ratio that when you divide the large number by the small number, in this case 5 divided by 3, comes out to be about 1.618. A 3x5 card is 1.6. And literally we could do an entire show on the golden mean. We see this every place. If you're not familiar with using the golden mean or the golden proportion, you need to bone up on it. Because if you're ever in doubt of how wide this bookcase should be compared to the height, you're never going to go wrong using the golden mean. That is something that is just universally pleasing to the eye. A bookcase made with a golden mean ratio is not going to be perceived as too wide or too narrow. It's just going to be pleasing to the eye. Now, if you really want to go down a rabbit hole, you can get into the Fibonacci sequence. And this is simply a sequence of golden means. It's really pretty neat. This is one of those kind of weird mathematical things that numbers do things that, don't really expect numbers to do by themselves, undirected. But if you take 0 and add a 1 to it, you get 1. If you take 1 and double it, you get 2. If you add 1 and 2, you get 3. 2 and 3 gives you 5. 3 plus 5 give you 8. And if you've been writing this out, you could probably see that we have created some golden mean ratios. A 3x5, a 5x8, those all create the golden mean. Just by adding the two previous numbers to create a third number. And that third number is going to be at the golden mean ratio with the immediate adjacent number. Understand? Of course you do. No, seriously, look it up. Fibonacci sequence. It's really quite fascinating. There's a woodworker in Maine that was doing this great big long buffet table for like a conference center. And he wanted to add some texture to it because otherwise it was just this great big long buffet table. And he used a router and carved in these kind of serpentine grooves in the face doors of this really long buffet table. The buffet table is something like 40 feet long. I mean, just massive. But he wanted something that would tie it all together, that would add some visual interest to it without it just looking like a 40-foot long buffet table. And so he used a router and created these serpentine kind of S-shape grooves in the paneled doors. And he spaced them using the Fibonacci sequence. So the first one was 1 inch from the edge, and then 2 inches from the edge, and then 3 inches, and then 5 inches, then 8 inches, and 13 inches. And whenever you're standing right next to it, it just looks like some grooves. But if you get back and look at it from a distance across the room, you start to see these patterns all kind of merge. And it's a really, really, really cool effect. This is what you can do with proportions and ratios. So after you've gone through your Fibonacci sequence study, you've got to get into the classics. You got to get into the Greek and Roman architecture. How did they do things? Why? Because someday you may get called by a contractor who needs some help rebuilding some of these elements of a house that he's working on. And you've seen them. Typically they're columns. In the Neo-Greek, Neo-Roman style of architecture, everybody uses columns. We use columns in the plantation mansions of the Deep South back 150, 200 years ago. We see them in our nation's capital. They're all over New England. Any major city is going to probably have this type of architecture. In a nutshell, watch the video, but in a nutshell, we can break these down into 3 types: Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. Don't get freaked out about this. They're really simple. Doric capital, that's top of a column, well, you'll see bevels, literally 45-degree bevels. Very, very simple. If you're building a kitchen table, you may use a 45-degree bevel as an edge treatment. Or on the capital, you'll see these little curly cues, like these little spirals. That's an example of an ionic capital. And then if you see something like a florist vomited on top of a column with all this foliage, these leaves, that is a Corinthian column. Now, it's really important to pay attention to the Corinthian column because that's where we get a lot of our high-end carving design. The acanthus leaf and things like that. That all goes back to this Greek style architecture. Watch the video. It will explain a lot. And of course, then you can tell your friends the classic, Greek architecture joke that, I saw a Doric temple in Corinth the other day. Ha! It was so ionic. Okay, yeah, I know that was bad. So that's the exterior of buildings. What about the interior of buildings? Oh yeah, if anything Victorian, early 20s, 30s, we still see these same type of architectural principles used on interior trim. Do you know what a plinth block is? How about a plaster? These are all things that trim carpenters have to know about and have to be able to recreate or to repair in a lot of these older homes. What does this have to do with furniture? Well, typically we want to see the furniture complement the space that they're going to go in. So if you have this really beautiful large room with 12-foot high ceilings and a very wide baseboard molding and classical door and window trim, and you put a piece of early American furniture in there, colonial, that's just not going to look right. So knowing these different styles, it will just make it easier for you to understand and advise. And this is where the art comes in to the craft of furniture making and repair and everything. Edge moldings. You have probably 24 router bits. A lot of those are edge molding bits. I'm sure you have a roundover bit. Probably a Roman ogee. No, I'm not talking about the ogee that 50-year-old men suffer from whenever they look down and realize that their belly is overhanging their belt by about 6 inches and they go, oh, gee, it's the same shape, I know, but it's not the same thing. Maybe there's a classic Roman ogee that is used on the counter table. There's a seam erecta that, well, okay, I'll leave that up to your imagination. Fillets, astragal, these are all terms that a well-versed professional woodworker would be very familiar with. And of course you get into things like beads and flutes and coves and V-grooves and things like that. And remember that the purpose of using all these things is to create shadows. Yes, we want to create areas of light and dark. Why? Because that's what our eye is drawn to. And that's the entire purpose of doing things artfully, is to draw in the eye. Remember, if you want to learn to see, study photography and art. If you want to learn to hear, study music. If you want to learn to smell and taste, study cooking. And if you want to learn to feel, study boats. Wooden boats, or get married. I mentioned earlier that the second definition of craft, the skill used in deceiving others. This is really important for people who are into furniture repair or people who are doing new construction furniture and just plain screw up. Yeah, you're the ones that grab the 1 1/4 screws when you're attaching the apron to the tabletop instead of the 1-inch screw. And what I'm talking about there is the skill used in deceiving others. Professional woodworkers don't make mistakes. We learn to hide them. And that might be with the use of color or with the use of inlay or scarfing in a piece of wood that has the exact same grain pattern. But Yeah, that's kind of where the deception comes in. You need to be able to hide your mistakes. So there's a whole bunch in the recommendations for the week. A lot of homework for you there. Missed jobs. Strangely enough, cabinets. Yeah, they keep coming in. Maybe I should do a podcast on kitchen cabinets. I'd like to thank listeners in Madison, Mississippi. Really appreciate it, as well as listeners in Tel Aviv, Israel. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the podcast. As always, please send comments, complaints, criticisms to Roger at woodworking.com, or you can give me a call, number in the show notes. And remember, I do offer coaching services for anyone who kind of feels stuck. You want to start something, but you're just not exactly sure how to get over a hurdle. First phone call, free. I'd be happy to help you out any way I can. There's affiliate links in the notes, Unitel Voice over IP for your business phone. And as always, buy me a cup of coffee. Show your support for the show. Until next week, happy woodworking.